We talked about a preview of the summit on Friday. What exactly have we got out of it? It was significant to begin with, given the fact that this was the first time the three leaders were meeting in several years.
Yeah, we've seen fresh lines coming up this morning. Premier Li said to be urging Korea and Japan to maintain strategic autonomy and to uphold a multipolar world, avoiding camp politics. Now, this is really China's way of telling Korea and Japan not to align with the U.S. when it comes to foreign and trade policies. This is a time when Washington has been pushing Korea and Japan to get on board by imposing limits on chip-making equipment exports to China. We know Japan already imposed some curbs last year. It's been trying to push back against further pressure to expand those curbs. And it looks like this trip, there's been some positive outcomes so far. President Yoon saying that the three have agreed to maintain a safe and stable supply chain and a transparent trade and investment environment. Now, the three countries have also agreed to resume talks for a free trade agreement that's been put on hold since 2019. So it looks like, at least the three sides have come together to try to seek common ground, at least on the trade front. And we know a lot is at stake for Korea and Japan because China still remains their largest trading partner right now.
And Minmin, I thought it was interesting to note that the Premier had a series of bilateral meetings as well with the Korean and Japanese leaders on the sidelines. It seems like he's taken quite different approaches with these two separate countries. Tell us more.
That's right. So in his meeting with Korea, the talks were dominated by China's call for this stable supply chain. And in a signal of how important that is, we see Premier Li also meeting with the boss of Samsung. Samsung, of course, is that front runner when it comes to chip processing in the region. Premier Li saying to the Samsung boss that, China is a mega market. It welcomes foreign investment. It will create a favorable environment for foreign companies. But when it comes to Japan, however, Premier Li had taken on a much more pointed tone. It called on Japan to fulfill its obligations and responsibility when it comes to the dumping of those treated nuclear wastewater into the ocean. Now, if you recall, several months back, China was very angered by this. It had imposed a seafood ban on Japan as a result. And it doesn't look like there is any breakthrough on this because the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida had also called on China to lift that ban. And it doesn't look like either side wants to take a step back on this. China also called on Japan to properly handle its historical problems as well as the Taiwan issue. And we know Japan kind of sees its own fate as being very closely intertwined with Taiwan because when China conducts these war games, some of its missiles have in the past fallen into the Japanese exclusive economic zone. So that's a concern that Japan has that is kind of casting a shadow over these free trade agreement talks because Japan is pushing hard for China to stop these preferential treatments for state-owned enterprises and subsidies as well that is distorting the playing field for foreign companies.